Good morning, Bernie. I'm really happy to be having this conversation with you this morning, technology notwithstanding. It's great to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. Nice to meet you.
So I'm sure that most people listening will know who you are, but for those that don't, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks. Well, I hope that some people might know who I am. I've been around the block a few times. My name is Bernie Ray. Currently, I'm working for the Sapphire Group, specifically for the Sapphire Risk Transfer UK business as an international executive, where my role is primarily currently in rolling out the international expansion of the Sapphire Group.
And that brings us to our topic today. So today we're talking about all things global, who it benefits, why it benefits, and I'm really interested to hear what you guys are doing because I think from our previous conversations, you've got some great insight into it. Do you want to give us a little bit of an overview about the Sapphire Group, just to kind of set the scene for the conversation this morning?
Yes, I think in a nutshell, from the outset, the Sapphire Group has a very well-defined growth and expansion strategy, geographical diversification as one of its cornerstones. The ultimate goal of the group, as I see it, is to conduct both insurance and reinsurance business in the short-term industry from multiple geographical locations. Defining those we'll get to, but effectively we're looking at underwriting platforms in the United Kingdom, South Africa, Mauritius, Bermuda, Europe, and Australia to start with. I'm not entirely sure as to how the group structure will work out ultimately, but nevertheless, there will be a commonality of shareholders amongst these global entities. And notwithstanding the group structure, group cohesiveness will be maintained through contractual arrangements amongst the members, particularly in the areas of financial management, IT systems, management reporting, and reinsurance structures. And those disciplines underpin our value proposition, as it were.
I think that's what I'm quite interested in, having seen sort of the early stages of Sapphire and the rapid sort of rollout and growth, how cohesive the entire group seems to be. So I'm really interested to talk more about this. Before we do, globalization is a topic that many people talk about. What I'm interested to learn is the benefits, I suppose, for an organization such as Sapphire within the insurance and reinsurance worlds. What's the benefit of globalization for everybody? And I'm thinking about all the different stakeholders.
So I think globalization has been happening at a rapid pace over a number of years. And of course, it has many benefits working in multiple jurisdictions. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, in my personal view, hurried that along. There was a massive move to digitalization, particularly on the communications front, and the whole post-COVID world of virtual working groups, I think, has laid the foundation for the ability to globalize at a very easy and fast pace. For me, we'll probably get onto it later, but for me, one of the major benefits of the global world that we live in is the ability to source global talent, the best of global talent for your business, no matter where you might find them, and to bring that to bear for the global footprint that you create.
I think that's really interesting. I've had a couple of conversations very recently around that topic. I was speaking to a software developer whose company has now gone to work from home since COVID, and previously they were recruiting within a radius of London. Now they're European. I spoke to an insurer, again, same deal, and I think it's opening a lot of doors that were perhaps previously closed. And this links quite well to the conversation I had with Sarah and Kathy not long ago about working from home, the benefits of, and how you get over the difficulties. So the world talent pool, as you put it, which I love, is central to the Sapphire Group. Talk to me about it. How are you going about it?
Well, fundamentally, at the core of our business is underwriting expertise in specialist classes of business. It's perhaps said very often, but perhaps not appreciated as much, that there is a limited pool of expertise in specialist insurance and reinsurance business in the world. And those talents are not necessarily all concentrated in one jurisdiction. For us to be able to have access to a global pool of world-class talent allows us to draw upon those expertise in that jurisdiction and perhaps then to utilize those talents across the broader global footprint that we hope to establish. It doesn't mean that the world has a shortage of talent. It's just that we seek out the very best of the talent, and that's one of our differentiators. The fact that one doesn't have to have brick and mortar residences for those talents also makes it a lot easier. By having a predominantly virtual workforce, one is able to deploy that workforce across jurisdictions within obviously regulatory and legal frameworks. But by doing so, you can cross geographical borders with talent a lot easier than perhaps it used to be, let's call it, prior to the COVID pandemic.
How, I mean, there's some obvious benefits to this to all parties. What are some of the benefits you've seen? And if you can give me examples, in terms of the capacity you're able to get, in terms of the end clients that you're servicing, how is this significantly benefiting?
Well, I mean, look, if I look at the different interests of the stakeholders, the model, the business model that we present currently presents a very attractive proposition for shareholders who no longer have to pay huge overhead costs for brick and mortar. That may seem a little bit parochial in the interests of shareholders, but when one looks at the wider implications for the greater stakeholders, and here I'm talking about policyholders, their intermediaries, brokers, and then of course a very important stakeholder for us, our reinsurance markets. By having a global footprint, we're able to offer our markets a diversified product range across different jurisdictions. We're able to offer capacities across different jurisdictions, understanding that not all reinsurers are alike. They don't all like exactly the same jurisdictions as each other. But by diversifying, one offers a diversified product range and obviously a diversified risk exposure. We think that with the experience we have and with a diversified model, we'll be able to offer capacity to our policyholders by housing, for example, our own reinsurance capacity in Bermuda. We'll be able to offer large corporates the ability to house their own retentions, for example, with us from our Bermuda platform, and many other benefits of that nature. When our large corporate clients are always looking for additional and alternative risk transfer models, and we think that our diversified model is going to offer them exactly that.
I suppose that naturally leads to why Bermuda, why Mauritius, why Australia? Have you got specific plans in place for further expansion?
Well, yes. I mean, I don't know whether or where the beginning was in terms of a real strategy. As it turned out, South Africa became the first operational entity, and there is now a flourishing Sapphire Risk Transfer business in South Africa, offering corporate property short-term insurance solutions to the South African insurance market. That business has been operating now for approximately 18 months and has gone from strength to strength. And not leaving South Africa out, South Africa has a very well-developed and mature financial services sector. It has, of course, an economy that might have been under pressure for some time, but South Africa remains one of the most advanced, broad-based economies on the African continent, and has many, many reasons why someone would want to invest in a business in South Africa. It has good and a strong independent judiciary. It has highly skilled IT professionals. and just the general business sector in South Africa is incredibly strong. Our views outside of that, in terms of our African initiative, we look to Mauritius. Now, Mauritius is a natural springboard for the rest of Africa and Indian Ocean islands. Mauritius is a highly sophisticated and well-regulated financial services sector. It offers a complete range of financial services. The World Bank has rated Mauritius as one of the 20 easiest countries in the world for doing business, and therefore it's clearly an attractive investment location. I dare say that Mauritius has a favorable corporate tax regime. There are no foreign exchange controls in place, and I raise that as somewhat of a bonus for us operating in the greater African continent space, because obviously when moving money across international borders, the ease of doing so remains very important. Having just come back from Mauritius, I can tell you it is there's a phenomenal pool of talent in Mauritius, and it has a very advanced insurance regulatory environment. In fact, in some ways, with respect to the South African operations, the Financial Services Commission in Mauritius is a very forward-thinking operation, and it is looking to grow its presence both in Mauritius and across the African continent. Bermuda, well, I think as an entity, as a group that is heavily impacted and invested in reinsurance, it is pertinent to point out that in 2019, I think it was, that there were some 700 captive reinsurers registered with the Bermudan Monetary Authority. It has premiums in the captive space of probably in excess of $40 billion. AM Best, according to one of their research articles, suggests that based on net premiums, some 36% of the global reinsurance market has a base in Bermuda. So for a company like Sapphire that has designs on providing reinsurance capacity within its group, it seemed a natural fit to have a presence in Bermuda. Bermuda is well known as an attractive company destination. Again, it is a low tax jurisdiction. Its company and insurance regulators are well versed in dealing with foreign investors. It meets IAIS standards. It has received full Solvency II equivalence, and it's one of only 2 non-EU jurisdictions to have full equivalency. So Bermuda is for us a natural fit. You ask why France, Australia, and perhaps any other jurisdiction. This is driven predominantly by the fact that we know people in these jurisdictions who are experts in their specialist class of business fields. And that's fundamentally one of the business strategies that we have, namely to partner with businessmen, experts in the insurance fields, that have their own very clear and good knowledge of their own jurisdictions and the business that they do there. United Kingdom is an interesting one because it clearly is also an insurance hub. And despite the emergence of other strategic insurance hubs in the world, such as Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, for example, London continues to remain the preeminent global center for particularly emerging markets, which is fundamentally our strength. And of course, London has always been known for housing specialist risk classes of the kind that we intend to deal with. Many large global entities still regard the Lloyd's market in particular as the key security. And we have fairly well advanced plans to develop our own platform within a Lloyd's environment. Traditionally, London has played a very active role in providing capacity in Africa. And as I've said before, Africa remains one of our preeminent global choices for where we'd like to conduct business. So that's it in a nutshell. We are fairly advanced in our discussions in all of those jurisdictions in terms of establishing our footprint there. There are, of course, as you would imagine, a number of regulatory and legal hoops that we have to jump through. We are in contact with the regulators in those environments. It is obvious to state that we intend to enter these jurisdictions by complying completely with the regulations pertinent to those territories. We're very happy to do so. To the extent that it's required and that we're able to do so, we also intend to have a substantial physical footprint, having just said that it's a virtual one. But to the extent that it is necessary and that we can, we will certainly have a physical footprint, and that particularly relates to attaining and retaining and developing the talent pools in those jurisdictions, which will probably in the initial stages require some skills transfers between United Kingdom, South Africa, Mauritius, Bermuda. Hopefully at the end of the day, growing those pools of talent locally, and then hopefully also some sort of altruistic view, maybe adding back to those jurisdictions by helping to grow those talent pools locally.
This is incredible. What is the timescales? What are the timescales you're working to?
Sarah, if I had my way, it would be all done yesterday. So there are no impediments on our side for moving forward with this expansion plan. As I say, we've had many discussions, and we have quite advanced discussions in some of the jurisdictions. I'd like to think that the platforms in Mauritius and Bermuda will be up and running by the end of 2022. But there are some complicated regulatory issues to deal with. We are not closed to understanding that some of these things take time, but we will move it as fast as we can. As I say, we have no impediments on our side, no need to delay. And I'm very hopeful that this will be up and running sooner rather than later. In the United Kingdom, there is already a company up and running. We're in a fairly advanced discussions with some potential business partners to enter the transactional operational mode, and hopefully that won't take too long either.
Strength to strength.
I hope so.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things you've mentioned that I'd like to dig a bit deeper in. The way you've explained it to me is a global footprint is imperative to be able to source the best capacity and to provide the best end result. The talent pool is a fundamental cornerstone of the business, because by being global, you're able to pick the best of the best, which is fundamental to the strategy. But you've also mentioned keeping IT, financial controls at a central level. Now, technology has to play a part in this. And what I wanted to talk to you about really is management information, the data that you're pulling to be able to centralize this. Big data is something we've all heard many, many times. It pulls into all these different areas you're talking about. Tell me how Sapphire are managing this.
Big data is a big question. And clearly big data has been around for a very long time. My personal opinion, though, is that the will and or perhaps the ability to use big data efficiently hasn't been there for the same length of time. In my past experience, big data was a big conversation piece, but very little was done about it. Again, I'll refer to the pandemic. Big data became even more important when one was trying to figure out the accumulations globally in regard to the impact of COVID-19. A very difficult calculation and needed a lot of data, because remembering that the COVID-19 losses were pretty much related to contingent business interruptions. So it wasn't direct damage that one was trying to calculate, and data became central. And I've personally never seen quite as much data flowing across my desk in trying to come to some of these conclusions. I'm not going to be presumptuous to suggest that Sapphire now has the answer to big data, but we certainly have the will and ability to mine the data that we require to put forward the best management information structures, I believe, currently in the market. Now, that's not big data or management information in a vacuum. It is management information that is readily available and necessary and important to your stakeholders. So you need some data that goes to your insurers. As you know, regulators these days require a significant amount of data in terms of, if nothing else, solvency and exposures. One needs a significant amount of data to be able to present to your reinsurers a package of risks such that they will understand what risks it is that they're underwriting. Gone are the days that a reinsurance panel will simply reinsure you on the basis of who you are. They require data to underpin what you tell them. Again, I don't want to harp on it, but things like COVID have opened the eyes of reinsurers, particularly around the world, to want to be absolutely clear what it is that they're reinsuring. Contingent business interruption has raised its ominous head once too often for them, and therefore you won't get away these days with giving them broad-based data. One has to be very granular in the data that one gives. Why is this significant for Sapphire? Well, I think if it were not for the fact that we were able to pull together management information and give these assurances to our market that we can deal efficiently with data, we probably wouldn't have been able to consider growing a global footprint at the pace that we intend to do so now. The ability and the strength that it gives us, the knowledge that it gives us, the ability to produce products that are appropriate for our client base is based on our ability to mine the data that we have. We haven't reinvented the wheel, Sarah. I think that all that we've done is that we've decided that the core of our business will be to present a solid base of information that is readily available and user-friendly to ourselves and to our stakeholders in such a way that we can replicate that across multiple jurisdictions and have this consistency that I think that our market is going to like.
So, from where we are now, the position Sapphire are in now, and to where you want to be at the end of 2022, who are you interested in speaking to? If somebody's listening to this, what sort of person needs to get in contact and say, Bernie, I've had this idea, or I'm interested in this? Where are you at?
Well, I think that to start with, our intermediary market is going to be very interested to see where we're going to be able to offer capacity to their clients. I think that they're going to be very happy initially that we're going to be able to offer capacity and products throughout the African continent. I think they're going to be very happy to see that we offer that through our Mauritian platform. The Bermudan platform is likely to start off as an internal group structure and only later offer insurance or reinsurance solutions to selected third parties. Our UK play is, I think, going to be very exciting to our current client base, in the sense that it's going to give them a further opportunity to obtain capacity backed by some very strong facultative reinsurance capacity that we'll be able to be much more involved in. I think that the platform, once it is up and running in the global sense, is also going to be very attractive to specialist underwriters who are looking for a home that will be able to offer them capacity and reinsurance capacity behind that. I think one of the most difficult things for a specialist underwriter currently on the platforms that are offered now is that they are often left to find their own reinsurance capacity behind their own businesses. Now, it might sound like an easy an ask, but it's not. And very often it's the kind of fundamentals that they simply cannot get right. They're able to access policy holders, but they're unable to offer the capacity because they simply can't lay it off in any proper way to the reinsurance market. And we think we offer a very comprehensive and worthwhile value proposition to our reinsurance markets. We have a proven track record both within the Sapphire Group currently and also in our previous incarnations, where both Gary Cork and myself ran very large MGA groups and individual UMA operations. In fact, at times, either individually or between us, Gary and I ran the biggest specialist MGAs in Africa. And with that experience and the relationships behind that, we think that we can offer something to a client base going forward.
Well, I'm sold, Bernie. I think it sounds absolutely phenomenal. I've really enjoyed working with Sapphire over the last year or so and seeing how it all folds out. And I've really enjoyed this conversation because I've learned from it, and I think you should learn something from every conversation. So I just want to thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I didn't realize I was that excited about what we're going to do, but having said it all out in one go has reignited that excitement. So thanks for that.
And it's only Tuesday, so who knows what could happen for the rest of this week with that fire.
Absolutely so.
Thank you very much for your time, Bernie.
Thanks, Sarah.